Some folks on Twitter trying to put a little fun in funeral. Many users saying that these are their last tweets. You likely have seen a little bit of this morning, prompting the hashtag RIP Twitter to trend worldwide. All of this, of course, a reaction to what's happening at the company. Just the latest, of course, these mass resignations.
Hundreds of Twitter's remaining staff opted for 3-month severance instead of committing to Musk's demand that they commit to a extremely hardcore work environment. But if you ask new owner Elon Musk, all the activity yesterday was life-giving in his view. CNN's Camila Bernal is live outside Twitter's headquarters in San Francisco. Camila, what's the latest we know on the numbers of how many folks left, how many remain, but also how that affects key functions in this company, including trying to keep a lid on misinformation, disinformation being spread on the website?
Yeah, it's not going to be easy. Good morning, Jim and Erica. Look, it's impossible to know exactly how many people have left, how many are leaving, or even how many have stayed, because of course, the company Twitter.
All right. Good evening, everyone, and how are you doing? Hope you are travailing and prevailing over the economic situations in your country, wherever that country may be. Share this link. We are live on Iwineti Africa, and today we're going to be talking about Elon Musk, Twitter, and many others. The tech industry, the global tech environment, where there's been a lot of changes in terms of the availability of remote jobs. Elon Musk is probably could be defined as alpha male, who has taken a lot of decisions because he wants Twitter to be profitable. One of those decisions is his movement of people out of the organization. And while he's moving people, he's moving things around, and people are also moving out by themselves. Today, we're going to be talking with Dr. Faith Nwaobia and Ida Na-Tei on the subject of remote work. Join us in a few seconds. All right, so I'd like to welcome Anne. She already joined before the session started. I appreciate you joining us from Zurich. And please, wherever you're joining from, if I can see a few people on the call right now, let us know where that is. While I give the floor over to my amazing guests to introduce themselves very quickly, let me start with the traditional ladies first. Ida Na-Tei. Please introduce yourself and let us know what you do. Go ahead.
Right. Thank you, Kenneth, for having me today. Hello, everyone. My name is Ida Na-Tei. I'm the co-founder of CTN Technologies. And what we do is that we train young people in fourth industrial revolution technologies such as robotics, 3D printing, 3D modeling, drone technology, and coding. I am also an electrical engineer, and I work with the Automation Ghana Group. So that's it about me. Thank you, Kenneth.
Amazing, amazing. Thank you, Ida, for joining us. Dr. Faith Nwaobia, please introduce yourself.
Thank you so much, Mr. Kenneth, for having me on this section. My name is Faith Nwaobia. I'm from Nigeria. I'm the founder and CEO of Utidia. And what we do at Utidia is to close the issues of skill gap by developing the next global workforce with the right skills, the industry relevant skills that are needed in the port to be able to fit into the port industrial workspace. So Utidia is a subsidiary of YouthUp Global, a youth-based social enterprise in the business of developing human capital, creating social and practical opportunities, and building sustainable empowerment platforms for youth globally, especially for youth in developing countries. So that is about you. Back to you.
Wow. Okay. Thank you for joining us, Dr. Faith Nwaobia. Amazing, amazing. We'll tune up your volume a bit on that. And let me just say that in case you did not hear Ida's middle name, you're not alone. It's from Ghana. It is, I think it is Ghana, right? It's Ghana.
No, it's actually Krobo.
It's Krobo. Okay, okay, that's right.
Yeah,
You're welcome. So,
Pajiko. Yeah,
yes.
thank you.
And Dr. Faith is shared with us his movement or his amazing stuff being done on Utidia. If you see at the bottom of your screen, scrolling through the screen are the websites of Utidia, YouthUp Global, and CTN Tech Africa. So please do check that out. Glad to see you, Sir James. Yes, Sir James has asked Faith to increase the volume. That's good. Glad to see you, Sir James, joining us from all the way from Canada. Glad to see you, Katun from Nigeria. Amazing, awesome one. And always glad to see you, and joining us from Zurich, Canada. I'll be eager to hear your thoughts on this topic as we go along on the conversation. All right, so I'm going to start with now while Dr. Faith, addresses the sound issue. We're talking today about the whole concept of remote work, and I'm going to ask now to share with us her initial thoughts. Great, her initial thoughts on the issue that between 2020 and today, we've seen the growth or the rise and fall of tech jobs, and that there was this apparent rise from 2020 due to COVID. And recently, we're seeing amazing layoffs. So let me hear your initial thoughts on that, and I'll bring Dr. Faith to also ride on that. Go ahead, ma'am.
All right. Thank you, Kenneth, for that. So in 2020, we all know what happened. COVID hit the world, and the world was, under shutdown. And now we had to find innovative ways of providing the same services and products that we needed, as human beings. There are things that you cannot do without. You cannot do without food services. You cannot do without healthcare. You cannot do without education. So this gave room for more of these online, or let me say virtual platforms or tech-enabled, platforms to be used. And it gave a rise in software developers and people with tech expertise. Because as humans, there are people who, we all most countries went into lockdown. Now here's the case where there are people who need healthcare. What do they have to do? What can they do? So this gave the opportunity for people who had apps and web apps and portals in healthcare to actually take advantage of the situation. I know before COVID, there were people who had businesses, startups that were using software, for their services. But then, people didn't really patronize them because it was new, especially in Africa. People are not used to having to talk to a doctor over the phone. They are wondering, will they give me the right prescription? Can I trust the doctor? I'm not seeing his face. Or even if I'm seeing his face, will he be able to diagnose me the way I want me to be, diagnosed? And COVID just opened up everybody, even people who were not very conversant with using the internet. Everybody had to be forced, to do things virtually. When it came to remote work, it was already in the system, but it wasn't very encouraged and appreciated because, well, employers would think that if you're working remotely, are you sure you're going to be efficient and all of that? But then COVID forced everybody to give it a shot. And then when we did, we realized that people can actually work efficiently from home, and it saves everybody because it saves us on resources, the time and the resources you spend on fuel, transportation, and all of that. And it even saved some companies. Let's say there are companies that, feed employees and all of that. They had to cut down on all those costs and all of that. And they began to embrace, this new, way of working. So even up till now, Ghanaians are still doing the hybrid system when it comes to work related, and even food industry. There was a rise in food deliveries, buying food online. People are not used to that. Now our mummies are buying food online and all of that. So demands for a rise in tech expertise. And I believe that this is what is pushing the drive for more people, to have this tech expertise to provide the services, software services for people. Even now, exams are being done online. Without a portal, how can you do the exam online? So you need a software developer to develop the interface for you to use for that exam purpose. So yes, and well, in 2022, things are looking interesting. There's a dip. I won't say okay, maybe a dip in the number of people who are applying even for tech related jobs. There is hiring freeze even in Ghana. Employers don't want to hire anymore. People are laying off. There's massive, well, we've not really seen so much of it in Africa, but in the US there's been massive layoffs. But for me, I don't think it's going to affect the future of tech jobs. Is a current economic situation that is driving that, and I believe that when things stabilize, things will be better. So that's my perspective on this.
All right, thank you so much. Dr. Faith Nwaobia, let's hear from you on that same question. The wave between 2020 and today, what are your thoughts, initial thoughts on that?
Okay, thank you, Mr. Kenneth, for that. And building from what Ida has also raised, 2020 opened a window of, will I say, a mixed opportunity for the world. The world actually experienced by surprise what will become something that will change the world of work. And as people had to stay back in their homes for the fear of the pandemic, work needed to be done. So one way or the other, for some persons that did not understand how it would be possible to work from home or become a digital nomad, as we call them now, it became almost something that everybody was getting to be so familiar with, and it became almost a commonplace. Now, what happened in 2020 was the fact that, of course, because a lot of offices were shutting down, opportunities were opening massively remotely. And of course, a lot of people were hired in the process. And then today, 2022, November 19th, we've seen a change. That change is what is happening. And that is what the labor market is also feeling. The impact the labor market is feeling is that change. And what is that change? That change is the fact that, of course, people are still working remotely, but some companies and employers are beginning to demand that perhaps it is time to come back to the office. And of course, we've had things like hybrid remote. You are working from home, but then you also have days that you come to the office. So you now discover that a lot of people who were holding on to this remote work, from 2020 to the early months of 2021, and maybe to the mid of 2021 before the COVID started relaxing and the restrictions started relaxing, are beginning to have another touch entirely. And that touch is the fact that we may not need to keep you because if you are not able to come to the office, we might as well ask you to go. So it becomes something that we need to also have a way to work an angle around it. There are a lot of arguments there. Has remote come to stay? Is remote the future of work? What is the way forward? All these arguments are out there in the public space. But what I know for sure is that remote work has come. Opportunities that it has brought are there. A lot of people that would not have worked with some brands, especially for us in developing countries in Africa, had the opportunity to key into the space and get opportunities. But then there is also another angle to it, which of course in the course of the conversation that we are going to raise. But I think looking at what has happened in 2020 and today, Of course, opportunities came because of the new wave that that came in, but then it is beginning to ease down somewhat. So it's more like the self adjustment. There is a sort of an adjustment going on. So a lot of people are beginning to ask questions around it, but then I'm sure we'll be able to have answers also from this conversation. Adding up to other conversation, other arguments that are also out there in the public space. So for me, tech brought opportunities in remote jobs or work. It is there. It is not going anytime soon, but there are things that we're going to experience going forward, and we will highlight them in the course of our conversation. Thank you. Back to you, Kenneth.
Thank you very much, Dr. Faith Nwaobia. I appreciate that. Yes, so opportunities were evolved because of COVID, and those opportunities are probably still going to be available, but I like the word you use, the phrase you use, self-adjusting. So
yeah,
like Ida said, the economy is making us adjust a bit.
Yes.
Other factors are making us adjust a bit. And for me, the way you look at it, to some extent, you see remote work, or let me put it that way, work from home somehow became work from another country or another continent. Because initially it was an issue of we are on lockdown, you can work from home. Then people suddenly realized that home doesn't have to be in the same city. Right? Home doesn't have to be in the same city. And maybe some organizations then realize that I can pay less for this skill. Because home doesn't have to be, if my company is in Paris, home doesn't have to be in Paris.
Actually,
the employee can be in Accra and he's happy with half the dollar value that I'm paying my existing staff.
Exactly. So it's changing. It's changed the landscape. Of course, in the world of work, it's changed the pattern of things. As much as a lot of people, the forces, try to push it back at first, especially for those of us in this part of the world, that had no knowledge around the fact that, it's possible to work actually from home and also be productive. Because the problem most people think working from home would have created was the fact that people wouldn't be as productive as if they were working from the various offices. So with other digital platforms opening up that are also helping to manage tasks and team and also productivity, you now discover that, of course, you're going to see more of that in the coming years. You're going to see more of digital solutions that would, on real time, manage activities, tasks, productivity, input, output, to be able to ensure that where you are does not really limit you to do your best in contributing to the success of any organization that you work for. So yes, there are opportunities that it brought, but I'm sure that in the coming years, months even, we're going to see something that some people may want to say remote work does not work. Because I've read an article, does remote work? So these are the things that we're going to uncover, I'm sure, as we go into this conversation, and then also observe how it plays out. Yeah.
Great. I like that diversion. Does remote work? And I'm going to ask Ida to share her thoughts. She's of a generation that I don't know whether to say born into WFH, right? So I'm going to ask her thought, because in some environments where I'm familiar with, the bosses that are not from this millennial generation, this Gen Z, are saying, look, the way we know work, you go to work, you go somewhere to work, right? What is this working from home where I can't reach you, I can't see whether you're working, etc. What do you think about that, Ida?
Okay, so yeah, it's true, right? A lot of people are still quite traditional when it comes to working, but then I believe that a lot of, for I might be a bit biased because I am more related to tech companies and engineering companies and all of that. But from where I stand, I think more employers are embracing the idea of working from home. The only challenge is that there are not much systems in place to monitor how efficient and effective it is for those of us here in Africa. But I believe that people are embracing it. Even up till now, there are a lot of organizations that are still doing the hybrid system, and it's working very well for them. And so for me, I know that there are some people who think that it's just, it doesn't work, it's not possible. But it also depends on the kind of work or service you offer. So if you're offering a service that can be done remotely, then it shouldn't be a problem. But then if you're offering a service that you have to be there in person, then that becomes a challenge. Because even when it comes to providing engineering or tech related solutions, there are, when it comes to something like smart home, sometimes you can even monitor the system remotely on your phone. If you can do that remotely, you can manage or monitor energy usage from your phone. Then wherever you are, you can monitor and know what exactly is causing a challenge in a particular installation or whatever it is. But if you're working in an institution where you have to be there in person, then that becomes a challenge, And those are the offices that couldn't work from home when we had to go on lockdown. So I think everybody should open up to the idea and find ways of diversifying or making their work more, there's something called, process automation, right? So automating more of their processes so that they don't really have to have people coming in person to actually offer the services they offer to people.
Thank you for that. And I think both of you have pointed out something interesting, which is remote work opened up opportunities not just for employees, but for new kinds of businesses. We were told back then that Zoom's profit base grew astronomically because people had to meet over the internet, video conferencing. Some video conferencing companies came alive during that period. Now we are talking about how do we monitor people when they are working from home. And Dr. Faith just said that these technologies will evolve as it becomes normal practice. We probably want to talk about, Ida has talked about, how do you even do your work? Assuming your work is monitoring availability of my services. That means I can do it walking on the street if I have a mobile app that can do the monitoring. I don't need to actually sit somewhere doing the monitoring. We've looked at training platforms. I mean, practically some organizations, no more travel for training. You have all sorts of ed tech platforms. And so it's a whole new paradigm. Now, that also required a whole new set of skills. And the next question I'm going to ask, I'll start from Dr. Faith Nwaobia, is how do you see Africans, embracing the skills necessary for this global kind of work? Because it became an equalizer. That means, like I said earlier, home doesn't have to be in the same city where your company is based. So that means I need to work at the same level, at the same skill level as that colleague who also lives in the city where my company is. What do you think this did for Africans? Do you think that what do you think about the balance of skills and opportunities for young Africans in the tech space since 2020?
Okay. Thank you so much, Mr. Kenneth, for that question. It actually resonates a whole lot in all the projects that we've been, working on in trying to get the African young person to key into the opportunities that the digital workspace now provides. The thing here is it comes with an opportunity, it comes with a challenge, and for every challenge there lies an opportunity. At first, of course, in 2020, as we started our conversation, it also came like a surprise to everybody. But then, even though it came as a surprise, and for some persons, it took them away from work, for some other persons, it also launched them into the workspace, the global workspace. I think it's just a lot about preparation, and that comes to the question that you asked about how prepared is the African population, especially the youth population, in order to key into the opportunities that have been opened, with the wave that we've seen digital workspace. The thing is that, of course, you know that we are battling with the issue of skill gap in Africa. Our curriculum, of course, were designed to fit in for 1960s, 1970s work requirements. And this is where a whole lot of work needs to be done. And that's what we are also piloting with Utidia in order to ensure that we support in upskilling and retraining even existing work. With this, what that means is that we need to do so much in the area of supporting African talent in order to get the relevant skills, in order to match, because now you are no longer an African citizen, you are now a global citizen. And you are no longer a Nigerian or a Ghanaian citizen, you are not a global citizen. So you are actually going to be working side by side with people that, that have all through their life, they've been exposed to the very things that you are even starting to understand. So it gives you a whole lot of work to do, and you do not need to feel that you've arrived. One or two skills that you have. I'm telling you, a lot of people have, they have 5 skills. Tech skills. They can do well in big data. They could do well in data analysis. They could do well in software development. They could do well in product. As in, they have it in all these. And so I think for us in Africa, one thing that I would encourage our talent pool in Africa, and everyone that wants to, maximize the opportunities that have been that the digital workspace is opening, is to have multiple skill sets. We need to say much of this. Of course, you may be good with graphic design, but you know the 3D modeling. Of course, because opportunities may not be coming in graphic design, and then you move into you are able to get something from the 3D model. So at all times, outside what you're currently doing, what else can you do? I think we need to get more of these multiple skill sets, become something that we would crusade, we would talk more, because skills are getting outdated daily, and we need to ensure that our people, our talent pool are up there, updated with their skill set. So having said that, another thing that I also would want to emphasize is, when it comes to digital platforms, of course, we know that Zoom is there, Slack is there. There are some, notable platforms that a lot of people are using. But you could also understand, you could also be surprised today that in most African work environments, a lot of people don't know how to use Slack. As common as Slack, right? They don't know how to. They will tell you, how does this Zoom work? You shouldn't be asking that kind of question in this 21st century. As a talent and as an employee in this age. You could have asked that question maybe in 1990s, in early 2000s, but not in 2022. Because things that are happening now is that even where you work now, they may be planning to go remote or hybrid. And they would work with people that understand what it is, as in the available technology, So you need to ensure that you have adequate knowledge of at least basic technology that you need to perform your job as a worker, as a 21st century worker. Because I try to use the word 21st century worker so that you find out that you're not just like every other person that has been working before now. So looking at balancing the skills, yes, we need to invest and crusade a whole lot about upskilling, reskilling, or whatever you want to look at, upskilling, reskilling, relearning, unlearning. We just need to ensure that a lot of activities are brought into that, support organizations that are into such programs, and also ensure that a lot of African youth, of course, they graduate from universities without being industry ready. What I mean by industry ready is that they don't have the relevant industry skills. Because I had already mentioned that the curricula that we were trained, or that are still currently in use in most schools, are dated already. So what we are doing, what EduTech, what we mean by EduTech, of course, education technology enables solutions and startups are beginning to do is to see how they can, fill in that gap such that, okay, fine, you've left school, but then the job that is available, you left school as an accountant, but you don't have any knowledge of accounting software that you could use. It's not just enough to have first class in accounting, but do you have the basic knowledge of the of softwares that you need to perform as an accountant? Because nobody is going to give you ledger to be filling or books to say, okay, look at these books, fill them in. If you're looking for books, if you have been trained with the knowledge of looking at books and then filling them in with papers and pen, you're not going to fit into this work, because you're going to be competing with people who use software, to do those things that you do in a very fast way. So if you're not able to do that, nobody's going to give you opportunities that are there. Opportunities are there, but the problem is that do you have the relevant skills? Do you have the adequate skills to be able to fit into the industry space? That's what we need to keep doing, and we will not stop with all the people that are investing in this space in edutech, right? Trying to upskill the African talent pool in order to position them to fit into the global workforce.
Wow, that's awesome. Now, you said quite a number of things, and one of the two or three of them that I picked up. One, there are certain skills in the digital age that nobody is going to teach you anymore. You expected to know them already because they are fundamental to working in this an age. And then our traditional educational system may not have caught up with how the modern workplace operates. So what we knew from school is not enough. I don't know how drastically that has changed in today's universities, but that's the reality. And if we're going to compete globally, we cannot assume that the skills we have now are sufficient. We must diversify our skills. We must learn new things. We must learn the basics, and we must also learn technology that augments our professional expertise. The accountant must learn SAP and so forth. That is amazing. Yeah. And I hope someone out there is listening to this and taking decisions. If you are watching this, share with us what new technologies you had to learn to become relevant in today's global economy. Let me turn over to Ida and ask you a similar question. What kind of skills are we looking at that Africans must now embrace, young Africans, in order to become relevant in the global economy? What kind of skills should we be embracing, and what kind of opportunities are out there? And I want you to touch on something as you speak to this. Do you think that remote work is encouraging some kind of a brain drain, taking our best to the world without actually taking them there? Your thoughts?
Okay. All right. Thank you, Kenneth, for that question. And I really love what Dr. Faith shared. I loved what he said about having multiple skills, and augmenting whatever you're doing with, a tech related or a tech enabled skill. Personally, I believe that there's been an exponential increase in the skills of especially the young people, especially in Africa recently over the last 3 years. With the age of, or the early years of the fourth industrial revolution, more people are getting involved in tech related skills. Everybody wants to learn some level of coding, or something that has to do with tech. Everybody is excited. I'm sure people are joining this conversation because they want to hear something about tech. And I would say that for us to be relevant, in this new age, we need to up our skills. No matter what you think knowledge is evolving every single day. You need to keep learning and relearn. Sometimes even what you thought you knew that made you feel on top of the game could become obsolete. So you need to continuously learn, continuous to personally make a decision to have a continuous self-development plan, So for me, that's it. And talking about brain drain or a drain of human resources when it comes to remote work, for that, we cannot really do much about it. But then the good thing is that at least they're not leaving the current location. So maybe they're not leaving Africa, or they're not leaving the country. they're still within the country, but then they're probably providing services for the global market. It has its positives and negatives. For the positives, they are challenged to make sure that their skills meet up to the global market. So that means they are upping their game, they are developing more skills, they are learning new things. But then for the negatives, now the local companies may not really benefit, from the expertise of these young people, and it will look more like they are providing their knowledge base to other institutions outside, which may not necessarily directly impact their current economies. However, they are getting paid for these services, and definitely, as human beings, we definitely, engage in some form of buying and selling, and would use some of the money we've gained from these remote jobs to purchase certain services that also provides money for the economy of the country in which you're living in. So personally, I would say that fine, there could be some level of brain drain, but it has its positives, because here's the case: when if I'm earning in dollars, that means I'm going to earn averagely more than an average employee where I am. Let's say in Africa. Let me use that, and that would make me indirectly spend more, and then the country can tax me more, and then they also get more money, right? But when it comes in terms of skills, the country would suffer, because here's the case where I'm not applying my skills for local development. However, at the end of the day, when I gain the skills, I gain it for myself, and I could later impact my society through maybe my own personal enterprise, social enterprise, or if I find a befitting job locally, I carry those skills that I've gained on the global market into that local job, and it benefits, the local economy. So it depends on how you're looking at it. And I don't think it's a total loss to us, but we should find a way of managing it and making sure that we don't lose our talent.
Yeah. Wow, that's a good point of view. First of all, if I'm working in, for example, Ghana, earning maybe $2,000 a month, as against $4,000 a month if I was in Netherlands, I would be better off than earning the equivalent of maybe $500 a month if I was working for a local company. And I get to spend my money here, so I'm investing in the local economy. And I'm going to ask this question later, but let's start thinking about it. Are those who are doing remote work actually paying taxes to local governments? That's an interesting question. But before that, I'd like to hear Dr. Faith Nwaobia's thoughts on this balance, this issue of, in quote, slave trade, brain drain, and so forth, because we're saying our best talent being taken away. Are the tech companies abroad finding an opportunity to pay less for the same level of skills that they will have paid maybe twice for in their own country? Dr. Faith Nwaobia, please share your thoughts on that one.
Thank you. And I want to actually build up from what Ada had said. Beautiful contribution that she made there. And yes, Mr. Kenneth, in a couple of days, you're going to see a campaign that we're going to launch from one of our organizations, of course, the parent company of Utidia, that's YouthUp Global. Wow. And that campaign is for each of the African countries. It will just have their own name to it. It's Japa Inside Niger, Japa Japa Inside Kenya, Japa Inside Zambia. So we're going to launch that campaign, and I will tell you, I'll give you a tip of what that campaign is, and I'm linking it back to what Ada had also raised. For us, and for me, I do not see it as a brain drain. Of course, you know that if it's not brain drain, it's a brain gain, right? So we could look at it from the brain gain aspect. Brain gain can come from people that had already left Africa, coming back to Africa with what they've acquired, with the skills they've acquired. Another brain gain is being in Africa and getting opportunities that are outside of Africa and depositing it here in Africa and not having to leave the shores of Africa. So for me, I think the idea here is I would take the slave trade angle. The slave trade that you raised is not a slave trade thing, so we need to disabuse our mind from that. There is no slave trade in it. I see it as opportunity and business. Opportunity and business. Employers are business people, and they're looking for ways to manage their costs. And so it could be anybody, and they will charge you based on what you are able to do for them. So they pay you based on your value. It's about value proposition. There are also some Africans that are earning higher than whites in their countries. It is about what value do you bring to the table. So as look at it from the value exchange. So if you've got, if you've got what you do and you do it well, you're going to be paid handsomely. And it doesn't matter at this level whether you're black, whether your skin is black or your skin is white or red or yellow even. So I think what matters most is what skills do you have and what do you bring to the table. So away from the slave trade, it's about I need to manage my costs, and I'm looking at what works for me. So and then as you're managing your costs, you're also interested in your productivity. So if these guys will be able to give me XYZ output for this X amount or X price, and someone I'm paying SY price is giving me only SY output, it's just on you to decide. So the decision is employer's own, and it's a business decision to take. So it's not to say that because you're earning at a level where perhaps you're not earning the same amount with one or two other persons that you've seen that are white, and you think that this is a slave trade. It's not a slave trade at all. So we move away from that. It's an opportunity. Guys are looking for people that are able to do work for them at a cheaper rate because they're business people and they want to manage their costs. And if you accept, fine. Nobody's forcing you. Slave trade is that you don't have, you really do not have choice. When you are brought into slavery, it's basically mostly not about you choosing. It's about you being forced into something. Nobody is coercing anybody to sign a contract to do a remote work. You can as well decline and say, until I'm paid so amount, then I sign. So it's all to you to decide. So you call the shot. So I can't say that you're a slave when you are the one deciding that this is your fate and is a consent. You've consented to it. So you live with that. That is not slave trade. That is you accepting what you think you're worth. And that does it. So away from the slave trade, then looking at the brain drain, which I told you that in few days to come, we're going to, in fact, we've sent it out, is on work. And that is Japa inside each country. So if it is Niger, the YouthUp Global Nigeria will have a campaign, Japa inside Nigeria. What does it mean? What it means is that position yourself to a point where the reason why you want to travel abroad, you can actually stay back here in your country and also have the same opportunities.
Wow.
We want to see that we reduce the level by which people have to leave their countries. If you really want to leave your country, it now has to be because you want to explore the world. You want to have, maybe you want to go to get foreign education, or you just want to experience, a life outside the country. Not because not the one that you have to pass through the Mediterranean Sea and die in the process or through the desert. It doesn't need to be all that bad. So we want to see that people within their country can position themselves by getting the relevant skills, by upskilling themselves, to position themselves in a position where, to put themselves in a position rather, where they can attract the same opportunities. When I started LinkedIn, when I came into LinkedIn, after I had left the banking space, even as we speak, a lot of people will be asking me, what work do you do, right? Because like I told you, 2020, as it came, a lot of people, it changed the pattern of work. So the work that we know is carrying your bag in the morning and dressing up and moving and driving to the office and say, everybody say, oh, he's going to the office. and then when office closes, you are back to your house. That is the definition of work. But now the definition of work now is you opening your laptop, logging into the platform that you're using to work, having your Android on or your iPhone, whichever you use, and then communicating with the rest of the world, right from the comfort of your home. A lot of people do not understand that. They're asking, is this person really working? Now, that question is something that you need to now, yeah, of course, it comes from time to time. And that is also why we try to educate our law enforcement agents to understand that not everybody that carry laptop or Android or iPhone is into the popular Yahoo, we call it in Nigerian parlance here, or fraud or something. That these guys are actually working, for and making legit earnings. So we have a situation where opportunities that we have now never existed before, and that is a plus. That is great. So the brain drain, anybody calling this a brain drain is missing it out. Is missing the opportunities here. The opportunities here is that I work for various organizations outside here. I consult. And I told you before we started this conversation that I had some dollar inflow that is paying me in dollars, and that expenses is done here in Nigeria, right? If I was not here, I would have traveled to that perhaps in the US to earn that money. And now I'm in Nigeria, and I'm going to go to the market here to buy in the market. That poor woman is going to have that contact with me and get that same money that I've earned. So one way or the other is coming back to the country, right? So it's Japa inside your country. You are in your country, but you have Japa and you are back also without having to leave physically, without the physical Japa like we call it. Japa is a Nigerian slang that we use to express exodus, moving or migrating from your country in search for greener pastures. So those greener pastures can actually be accessed without having to board a plane at all, just because you are skilled and you've got the opportunities within the space that you can attract those opportunities. So it's not a slave trade, it's not a brain drain. For me, you cannot be a slave. It cannot be a slave trade because no one forced you into it. You decided for it. It's not a brain drain because it is a gain for us. And that is the conversation we are going to also have about the tax and how countries can position themselves to actually benefit from remote work and everything. That is also something that we'll also explore. But even if outside and the way of tax, the fact that the expense, the same money is going to be expended within the host countries makes it a gain and not a drain.
Wow. That's a lot of wisdom there and strong arguments. Now, somebody can rebut the argument and say, but the guy who is offered, okay, let's say a job is worth $4,000 in the US, in Washington, and based on labor laws, the country and all that, the company pays the typical worker $4,000, right? And then remote work shows up, and Dr. Faith is saying the company sees an opportunity to pay less for that level of skill.
It's just business.
It's just business. Maybe $2,000, right? And he said, "Wow, I can get this skill for $2,000." Then the employee who is sitting in Lagos says, "Oh, my former company, they're paying me the equivalent of $500 for this, my amazing global skill. But somebody is offering me $2,000.
So who is getting?
Yeah, both are gaining, but at the same time, the employee, there's no way he can refuse that offer. So while the argument is that
let me quickly clear that argument before you build it up. Let me clear that argument before you build it up. That argument needs to be cleared quickly because the employee that is in the US is not spending, they are spending pattern is not the
cost of living.
Yes, in labor, in trying to decide the price of labor, I'm a labor economist, that's my field. So in trying to decide the price of labor, a lot of things come into play to decide the price of labor. So you're looking at the environment, environmental factors come into play. And when you're looking at environment, when you're selecting environmental factors, you're looking at cost of living, right, in that environment, right? So these are the things that also matter, you know. So you will not compare yourself with someone that is spending an employee in New York will not be compared with an employee in Lagos. Of course, because they are not spending at the same level in the cost of living, or maybe someone in Australia comparing himself with someone in Ghana comparing with someone in Australia. They are not having the same environmental factors in terms of pricing, in terms of cost of living and all that. So it is not, let us not look at it from the fact that because you're not earning exact, you see, the value of money is on what money can buy. Yes. And not just the figure itself. It is the value is what can this money buy, not the unit that you're holding. So you could actually hold a much unit, but it doesn't buy anything. So it's worthless, really. So the value of money is on what money can buy. That's how we look at it. So how much can this amount you're paying me make me better in my environment? And that's why this guy will not resist the offer, because the $500 you're paying, the local company is paying, is far less compared to the 2,000 that this guy is. So it's a win-win for everybody. Yeah. This is a pure market system, not some charitable structure. It's just a pure market. I need something for less, and I'm getting it, and that is it.
Awesome. That's beautiful. I think Dr. Faith Nwaobia has shown himself a true expert on the subject of the labor market, because and he has also given you an insight. If you're listening and you're trying to make a decision, somebody has offered you some work in Dubai, and you say, as long as it's outside Africa, it is heaven. It's not true. You have to compare the cost of living where you are going, assuming you need to physically move, with the cost of living locally. Someone can say, we're going to pay $2,000. You arrive in the country and you discover that to pay for a one-bedroom flat, you need to spend $1,000. I mean, that's just what the insight that Dr. Faith Nwaobia has given us. So if you are making that deal, it's a win-win for the organization. Remote work is a win-win for the organization and for the employee who is working from Africa. Let me read a few comments before I turn to Ida on the next question. James has given us an incredible insight on something that is already going on. I have supported, saying James, I have supported and advocated for a tech training group in the DRC called YouthUp Africa. They are providing tech training for people in the DRC. Please see next message. YouthUp Africa recently touched base with Noxton, East Africa. Dr. Faith, you must connect with them for co-training opportunities locally abroad and as specialists within the DRC. So that's it. We're going to have JACPA DRC very soon. JACPA exit internally. And I like that concept that Dr. Faith Nwaobia also talked about, where employees must position themselves to go abroad without actually going abroad and be able to earn dollars in their own country. And that positioning is simply a matter of improving skills, becoming global in the range of skills that you're getting. So James has promised to DM the contact details of YouthUp Africa, a great partnership coming up for Utidia and YouthUp Global. Anne says, Dr. Faith, JACPA in Nigeria, I don't know whether I missed the spelling. Is it double P or single P? I mean, that's an composition. I may have missed the spelling. Dr. Faith, JACPA in Nigeria, in other nations in Africa. I really believe these ideas are powerful. Yeah. Think of the boom of IT in the 1990s in Bangalore in India. Same phenomenon. And it lifted up India as the IT experts space. So in the case of India and possibly China, the government saw it as an opportunity to sell intellectual property to the world. And there's a paper on this by, I think, PwC on how Nigeria can sell intellectual capacity as an export product that is worth more than oil. That's a big one.
That's a beautiful line of argument there. Yes. And that's a massive opportunity for countries like Nigeria, that we have a teeming, vast, of course, young and youth population. And we can tap on this. That is why we are so interested in human capital development, not just to develop human capital, but positioning them for the value exchange so that you can capture value from your resources. And the best resources we have in Africa is just our youth, the best assets that we have. So we can actually leverage on that and export. Look at what China did at some point. Of course, some persons argue that Nigeria and Africa may not repeat the same pattern as China did. But I also have the feeling that we can as well, tap into the opportunity that are open. Because let me tell you, as much as we are seeing massive layoff from big tech, what will happen is that there will be a lot of opportunities coming into the developing world. Because a lot of people are going to be shifting their shop, moving their shop to Africa, to other developing nations. So how are you prepared to tap into that? So this is an opportunity for not just only Nigeria, across all African countries. We can use our greatest assets, being the young people, to tap into the global opportunities.
Wow, amazing. We can be here and tap into global opportunities. I'm going to turn to Ida. I'm going to turn to Ida and ask this question directly. I'm going to put Ida on the spot right now. Let me spotlight her and ask this question. Now, Ida, assuming you got an opportunity today, earning $5,000 a month from the United States company, are you going to declare your income and pay taxes to your government?
Wow, Kenneth. Okay, so, well, I'm an advocate for development for my country and for Africa. So it would not be really much of a challenge for me to actually declare. I'm not saying this because I want to impress anybody or I want to look good, but I'm actually an advocate for development, socioeconomic development for Africa. So personally, if I know it's going to be beneficial in terms of development, in terms of our economy, then I'm going to declare it. And I would go for an offer that is enough for me to declare my taxes and still have enough to take care of myself. So if the offer is not good enough, I'll negotiate and get it higher. So I'll definitely declare my offer to the
Do you
government.
think the typical African youth will do that?
No, I don't think so because currently we don't even have structures in place. We don't have policies in place to actually take advantage of this. We are still looking at traditional jobs and how to tax local employers. But then those who are getting jobs remotely from foreign companies, they're actually taking everything in. Apart from the fact that maybe when they go and get products and services, they have to pay certain taxes. They are not really being taxed, and nobody is really actively looking into it because a lot of money can be gained, through these mediums. People are making money. There's something called cashing out. People are cashing out from remote jobs, but then the government is not taking advantage of it. Nobody is looking into it, seeing that there are a lot of opportunities here and we can make money from here. I know there's some policy making about, I don't know about remote work, but the new technology, AI, and all of that. But I don't think anybody has, for my country, I haven't seen anybody actively doing any policy making on remote working. And I think it's something they should look into and take advantage of because we need money for development. There are a lot of developmental projects that have been abandoned because of lack of funds. And we need to look at all these areas and generate revenue so that our country and our continent can develop.
Wow, thank you so much for that. So the governments need to see that this is a gold mine rising, and then somehow and I think that's part of a kind of like a strategy for exporting intellectual power, so to speak.
Exactly.
So there has to be a strategy for them. Go ahead.
Yeah, we don't just have to look at exporting food produce and material things. Here's a case where we are exporting human resource through our brain knowledge or our skill set. And I think it's going to be like you mentioned earlier. Now that there's a lot of layoffs, I think Dr. Faith mentioned that now that there's a lot of layoffs, people are going to be looking for cheap labor. So it's up to us as young people. I'm a young person, just in case you don't know. If you have their skills, they'll be coming for you because they want to reduce costs and increase their profits. So I think it's like Dr. Faith said. I didn't say it blatantly, but he's saying it's a gain for everybody, and I agree with him. It's actually a gain for everybody, and we need to position ourselves in a way that we can benefit from this opportunity.
All right, awesome. James says, Ida made a great point that remote work may be helping other countries receiving similar or superior work for less. while not contributing to progress locally. Yeah, you got that right. So that means governments must be strategic in leveraging this opportunity. And James's opinion or thoughts is that Africans must create their own companies so they employ each other on the continent. And I like the sound of that because it means that instead of, I think Bangalore or India did something like that. China does it with electronics as well, where the US company says, I want cheap labor, in quotes, from Africa. Instead of employing individuals who are contracting companies that are based in Africa that have employed local staff. So that is one way of looking at it. And says, Africa's greatest natural resource, its youth. And she mentioned earlier, not the cost of living. We are torn out of our cultures and communities. Don't forget that price. So that's part of the price, of part of the Japa price. I think somebody should write something around Japa, the ins and outs. All right, Dr. Faith, I'd like to hear your thoughts on what do you think would be the strategy a government could, leverage to capture this money that is coming into the country through remote work. Okay, I think we lost Dr. Faith's stream briefly. He'll be back shortly. And while we wait for him to be back, I'll just play this short video. Okay, a little bit of advertising there. I will talk about. I will wait a little for Dr. Faith. We'll want to hear his thoughts on that concept. How can African governments leverage the income from remote work? So he's back. So I'm just going to let him speak.
Yes, so I mixed up there. Yes, I'm here.
That's fine. Please go ahead. How can African governments, what can African governments do to mine this remote work opportunity?
Yes, so what government must do in order to maximize this opportunity, opportunities that the remote work is offering? Of course, we've talked about taxation, and so there are issues about taxation. And when it comes to affecting a proper tax system, it has to go through some questioning. The question of residency comes in, and that is where a lot of opportunities are being missed by this organization, by government, because you're looking at where is this person earning from and who is paying. So a lot of government are yet to understand, to come up to speed with technology that will be able to track who is earning what and from where are they earning from. And you also need to also balance the fact that there is source and there is resident. So are you going to tax at source? Are you also going to, you must also look at the double taxation issues. By the time someone is paying me from the US, perhaps the taxed person, the income is already taxed from US, and then Nigeria government is also trying to tax me too on the same amount. So it's something that needs to be defined. Who actually gets this value in terms of the tax that comes on payments that we make remotely, on earnings that we make remotely. So, but I think a lot of governments and countries are beginning to get it right. In that today, I'm sure in Canada, they've managed the fact that that you work remotely does not mean that you will not pay your taxes, because they are looking at the whole idea of your accounting system has been done, properly managed, and also in US and some other advanced countries. But in most developing countries, we are still having the problem of having to track who is paying you and who is paying who, and where this money, where these earnings are coming from. So I think technology is the problem. There is a technology gap here for most developing countries, and they need to develop, build, and invest in that architecture. Except you have the foundation, you will not be able to maximize the real value here. One other ways that you just mentioned is also something that can work. Yeah, we don't want to deal with individuals, but we can deal with organizations that are employing locals, and then they don't use these locals to do the work. That is a format. That format is easy to be managed in terms of tax, taxation, but we have a problem of record. Who is what? Who is who in Nigeria? For instance, in Nigeria, where I am, outside the BVN, which is the bank verification number that banks came up with some couple of years ago, there is no verifiable means of identity. Except you have, of course, your passport, right? That's the only means of identification that you can easily verify, so long as Nigeria is concerned. And I'm sure it's also a pattern across other African countries. We have not managed our directory. We don't know. We don't even know who is a Nigerian. So it's a problem. We don't know, for instance, who is a Nigerian and what makes a Nigerian. So that question has not been answered until you fix your national data, right? Until you fix your national data and get your statistics right, you can't be thinking about getting your taxation right. You can't tax people that you don't know, right? You must tax people that you know, and you must have a form of national identity for each person and be able to track it so that such identities are, linked to their biometrics, linked to their banks. So whatever it is that they are doing, online, offline, you can track it with their identity. So we do not have our identity. So we need to first fix our identity, national identity, for most of the African countries. Nigeria, where I am, very much before we are able to gain, in this. I mean, from the government side, speaking for the government now. From the government side, but before they are able to maximize the opportunities that the remote work is offering. Outside that, brother, it's a long distance. It's a long distance journey.
Wow, awesome.
You can't tax who you don't know, really.
Yeah, exactly. And you can't tax someone that doesn't identify with you. Yes, Katung, thank you for that. Katung says, I quite agree with the doctor on the data issue. That is key. Data. We need to, the government needs to know the people to tax them. And James said, yes, Canadian citizens must pay income taxes regardless of where they work. In some circumstances, thank you, James, for that. In some circumstances, we have agreements with countries to avoid double taxation. And that is a great one. And you know why it's great? Because one of my senior colleagues was telling me that during COVID, an American citizen was here in Accra, working locally and getting an additional $1,000 for as a COVID support because they are a citizen. So that's part of what it means to be a citizen. This means that if you're going to tax me for remote work, then I must be very clear on what the benefits are to me for being a citizen of the nation. That's another conversation entirely. All right, so I'll just ask one more question and then we wrap up the conversation. While we were on this conversation, we have booked part 2 because it's an interesting conversation. And I just got a booking on my WhatsApp that we have to have part 2 of this conversation with a larger audience, and I will work on that. So before I close, I'm going to ask, first of all, Ida to tell us what CTN Technologies is doing to support this concept of remote work in Ghana. And I'm also going to ask Dr. Faith Nwaobia what Utidia is doing. Ida, please go ahead.
All right. Thank you, Kenneth, for that. So basically what we are doing right now is just preparing the youth, right? Preparing our human resource with the skills that they need, for the job market remotely. So we train our service that directly feeds into remote work is training people in software development. But then during this conversation, I just got some ideas and some insights, and I'm looking at expanding what we are currently doing. Kenneth, you spoke about having organizations that actually receive contracts to deploy people to work remotely, and I think it's brilliant. We never actually thought about that. What we do is just train people and then connect them to job opportunities. We also have Thai conversations, where I talk to leaders in the tech and innovative entrepreneurial space, just to inspire the young people, because my focus is the youth, the young people like myself, because tomorrow is for us. And so that is what we do as a company. That's what we are doing to train the next generation of leaders so that they can lead our country in the fourth industrial revolution, and also with this new the wave of technology in the world. Yeah, thank you. So that's what we are doing currently. So
Awesome.
that's my
And
website.
great, great, great.
Yeah.
That is from Ida. Awesome things going on CTN Technologies. Let's turn to Dr. Faith Nwaobia. What is YouthUp Global doing? What is Utidia doing about the remote work and the opportunities that are happening globally? Go ahead, sir.
Okay, so we are doing two things. We are doing the advocacy, and then we are doing the actual work here. Advocacy from YouthUp Global. We are advocating for increased human capital development investment, creating opportunities and social impactful opportunities, and building empowerment platforms for youth. And one area, of course, that interests us so much, or that concerns us so much, is the area of fixing youth unemployment. And we know that the best way to fix youth unemployment is by fixing the issue of skill gap in developing countries. Like we know, and I will discuss here, a lot of gap exists that for young people leaving schools. And in order to do that, in order to ensure that we don't just end at advocacy, we started off the Utidia project. At the moment, our site is undergoing construction. Of course, you could look at it. You will know that, of course, this is our mission is social mission-driven global edutech, and the whole idea is to raise talent for the global workforce, for the change that we're seeing, and for the future of work. So when Utidia is live, what it's going to do is to help young people, especially, and anyone anyway, that is in Africa or in developing countries of Asia, to be able to get involved and get upskilled, so that they would have the relevant industry skills that are needed in this fourth industrial age, so that they don't miss out from opportunities that are opening up, in the global workspace. So for us at YouthUp Global, and then in extension Utidia, which is actually the execution arm of what we've been advocating for over the years, is that as we encourage young people to get upskilled, get themselves positioned, the question is, what are we doing? What we are doing is what Utidia would handle by actually giving out these trainings, supporting them in upskilling in various digital skills, tech skills, green skills also, that are relevant in this 21st century workspace, and also to prepare them for the future of work. Because, of course, every day we see that skills are changing and getting updated, and then we must keep upskilling and then keep challenging your current knowledge. So this is exactly what we do. So we do two things: advocacy and the action. So we advocate under YouthUp Global, and then with what we are building on Utidia, we would give opportunity to all Africans and also Asians and other the youth from developing countries to key into the digital space and gain opportunities that are opening, remote, on-site, whatever it is, and also to retrain existing workforce and also manage projects for organizations using this talent pool coming from developing countries. Yes.
Awesome. Wow. This conversation was scheduled for 45 minutes. But because it's such a strong conversation, we could keep going on for another 1 hour. We could go on. We could go on. So like, yeah, it is unending. So like I said, while we were on the call, we just got a booking for part 2. So I have one speaker for part 2 right now. And I'm going to get other people who are going to share their experience working from Africa for a global organization, as well as those who have had to jackpot, and we share experiences in that.
Very important. Bring those jackpot people and let them know that they can start coming back, to actually establish those companies that someone had mentioned here, that we need more businesses opening up in Africa so that we can employ our locals. Very important.
Oh, wow. So Dr. Faith Nwaobia and Ida Na-Tei, let me leave the middle name. I'll write it down. I appreciate your time so much and the amazing insights that you've shared with us today. I'm sure they are useful to a lot of people out there, useful to decision makers, useful to employees, and generally will keep this conversation going. This recording will be on our YouTube channel. We're also going to break it down to consumable, lengths, so that the key points will be shared over this coming week. Let's stay in touch. If you're watching us for the first time, subscribe to Iwineti Africa, and let's give a shout out from the audience to Dr. Faith Nwaobia and Ida Na-Tei. Thank you very much for being here.
Thank you kindly.
Thank you, Ida. All right, bye everyone. See you another time. So we're just closing out the external audience very shortly.